Can you hear that? Wind, metal, bad lighting. Just bear with me. Have you ever asked yourself why the powers that be were so insistent on blaming humans for climate? I never really understood that, but I think I understand it now. So if you want to have some input into this idea, I would like to hear from you, but I think I'm onto something. So we're just going to take a short break and we'll be right back. I forgot to say, my name is Jill. Welcome to the Road Report. And it's also really hot, so I may be looking a little flushed. But I wanted to run this idea past you. So, as you know, I've been starting to talk about the grand solar minimum and why, for whatever reason, personally, that has grabbed my attention. Normally, I don't get too excited, or I accept the fact there's about 50 looming crises on the horizon. But for some reason, I cannot let go of the grand solar minimum. And I've established I am not the scientific expert. One of the things that I'm sure you've heard also at some point is that culture drives politics. Politics is really power and control. So having done an exhaustive and painful review, as much of the literature as I can so far on the Ice Age and the grand solar minimum, some things have started to come together, and I want to share them with you. Okay, so can you see out here? So this is power and control. Culture drives power and control. What drives culture? I'm going to say it's food. Anytime somebody's survival is at stake, that affects culture, meaning revolution, great big changes. And so it's not always famine, it's not always food specifically, but it is enough to have your basic survival needs threatened. So what controls food? Climate. Makes sense, right? So if I am the powerful elite, and I know that I can't control the climate, the best I can do is convince you are the problem. Why humans have impacted climate is a way to keep power and control. And the reason that I think that's true is in the original Ice Age problem issue period, a couple hundred years, there was before that a medieval warm period. And then things went horribly wrong, not all in the same place at the same time, but one of the most common reactions was the gods are punishing us, or evil spirits or supernatural is punishing us. So there was the burning of witches, there was a lot of religiosity, there was a lot of self-flagellation, anything that appeased the gods to bring good weather back. Well, now we're in a time of science, and we know that we're not the victim of a mysterious force. What drives climate? So we're looking at it from a scientific perspective. Now, if it's true, if science, the sun, something outside the earth is driving climate, which in effect drives food or agriculture or survival, which then affects the people or the culture, that's going to have an impact on those in power and control. Now, if you are in charge, how do you best keep control of the people? Is you convince them they're to blame, that they're powerless and very fearful. Because if you have a lot of shame and fear, you're operating from a place of disempowerment. So, as an example, in an abusive relationship, you have the abuser and you have the victim. The abuser controls the victim through shame, through blame, through intimidation, and creates weakness. Now, interesting side note, the reason the abuser hates the weak person is because they hate the weakness in themselves. So they attack what they do not like. The powerful hate the weakness in themselves, so they hate us, the people, try to convince us we are weak and not powerful, therefore we are to blame for what is climate change. Now, hot or cold, whatever's changing, history has shown us that the climate changes. From what I can tell, believe we are moving into what's called a grand solar minimum. It's not about glaciation or a massive ice age. It's about losing control of the existing warm period, which means our food is threatened. What's interesting from a historical perspective is who did well in the famine and extreme weathers. The people who did well were first the Dutch, then the English. It took the French a couple hundred years to get it together. And the reason why is they wouldn't change. They were inflexible. They came from a place of disempowerment where the Dutch and the English took matters into their own hand. Now, you can rest assured those with the power and control issues, they don't really care about you, and so they want to keep you weak and afraid and disempowered. The only thing you can do to end an abusive relationship is to take your power back. You don't attack, you withdraw. This person, it's like an addiction. The abuser freaks out a little bit, they don't get anything from you, and they go away. Now, that still leaves you. You still have to deal with what's happening. Climate change is real. It happens. We live in a cyclical world or environment or timeline universe. So I believe that we are on the cusp of, I used to call it the new world. I'm going to start calling it the next world. We are on the cusp of the next world, which is going to be changing climate, which is going to require an agricultural revolution, because the way we're doing things is not going to be sustainable in what's coming. And as our agriculture changes, the culture is going to change. And here is the big aha. As the culture changes, we the people are going to have to decide how we want to create power and control. Whether we want to create systems where we empower ourselves, or we want to create another system where we give our power away to something outside ourselves. That is the big challenge in the next world. Now, I still think all this other stuff's going to be coming down the pike here, and I still believe that aging is going to be an issue no matter what happens, and I think the climate's going to change no matter what happens. So if we go to war, if we have an economic collapse, if we have more natural disasters, so this isn't going to change. Getting older is not going to change. We still are going to have to look at it through those perspectives, which is why I think I'm really attaching to that. But I wanted to throw this idea out to you. So the reason why I think that the powerful controlling interests want to convince us that the climate is getting warm and that we are to blame is to keep us in a disempowered state. Therefore, when agriculture collapses, we come from a place of fear. The culture stays fearful, allows the power and the control to remain in the hands of those who currently have it. Meanwhile, the universe is going to do what it does. We are the change in this formula. We get to decide if we want to be disempowered, afraid, and give our power away like a victim does to their perpetrator, or we want to be the hero in our own lives. That is my thought for today here on the Road Report. Really interesting to hear your feedback on that. There's more to this, but this is the first part. Stay tuned and we'll see you next time.